it's not a standard B2C store. It has some B2B parts too. So, well, that's business to business, and there were some challenges for Magenta here. I'm going to talk about them in a moment. So what we did to meet the requirements. So bankkabli, it's a project of Team SA, company, one of the largest distributors of electrical and technical equipment in Poland. So they've been on the Polish market for 25 years, a listed company, public company on the stock exchange for 15 years, employing more than 350 people, 30 branches all over Poland. They have the logistics headquarters in Siechnice, near Wrocław, a well-automated place, well-organized headquarters as the base where they use their logistics to transport cables. bankkabli.pl was a project to have a new distribution channel to cut sales costs and reach more final customers. So Tim company approached us with some preliminary design or preliminary idea. We analyzed their ideas. We thought about what they needed for the business, what the goals were. We defined the goals and we implemented it based on the process with those stages. Now, first about the process and then about Magento. So, first of all, we made the team's ideas more specific, functional ideas, interactive prototypes showing user interface prototype. You can do modifications. That's a cheap way to go about that compared with changes at a later stage. So you can tailor the system to users' needs, and in this case, those needs were not so obvious and easy to satisfy. So based on the initial project, we had user tests. So we recruited users from various groups. It included people from maintenance departments at electricity and energy companies, or standard or ordinary end users, consumers buying cables for their house DIY purposes, various different groups. So it was not so easy to design the interface in such a way that each and every of those groups could satisfy their needs and do what they wanted easily. So based on our research, we improved, we redesigned, and this is the cable calculator. Cable calculator is one of the most interesting parts of the project. So let me dwell on that for a while, because, well, it's not standard business to sell cables online, so each of you has seen a cable in your life. It's not so easy to sell it online. Cables are sold by meters, also in different cables, discs or large drums. But generally the main problem, one of the main requirements for the online store that the client required, is that people usually order a cable of a specified length. But why is the problem? 1.5 thousand meters, but then you have 1,700 meters, and then you have the cuttings, the remaining 10 meters or 50 meters on the drum, and there's a problem what to do with those cuttings when the remaining cable. So there was the idea to make a calculator, provide a calculator, so the customer puts in the length, and then so that we could adjust or provide cable length to get rid of the remaining cuttings and offer a good price. So when a customer wanted to buy 1,000 meters, then we could sell it in sections and for a better price, for lower price for the customer, and we could get rid of those of the stock of the cuttings. It was not so easy, and well, it shows how we simplified the calculator. Also, on the right-hand side, you have the final cable length calculator version that was implemented. So you needed to know how many sections, length of the cables we have on stock, how expensive, what the price is, extra service, additional services, cutting, cable cutting service, etc. So, well, in technical sense, it's not so easy because, you know, with every online store, you put your product to add your product to a cart, and it's not so easy in this case because well, you had those cable sections, and based on the prototype we designed the graphics of the store using customers' graphics, colors, suggestions, and we made one graphic layout or idea, and it was accepted, and we provided graphics for the sub pages, and based on that we developed HTML code which was implemented on Magento platform. Why Magento? Well, two important reasons were: one is that Magento is very flexible. It gives opportunities for easy development in the future with multi-sites, extending the code with no need to modify the system core. It could add features without modifying the core. And Magento has become the standard in e-commerce platforms. It gives you business security. So the customer can develop the platform themselves, clients can develop the platform themselves, because it's open source and they are not dependent on a supplier. And these were the two main reasons why we chose Magento. Well, we had concerns whether it would work because there are not so many B2B systems for Magento or on Magento, so we are thinking about maybe developing a dedicated software or to use some other system, but we analyzed the requirements, the needs of the client, and we decided that we can go with Magento. And I'll show you how we did it.
Specyficzny produkt. Tutaj jest pokazany kalkulator kabla już wdrożony w sklepie.
A specific product here, cable calculator already implemented in the store. It is very colorful, and the problem with the cables is that they don't have fixed prices. It is calculated according to very complex formulas depending on the product type, various price thresholds, and so on. It cannot be done by using get price method in Magento. It has to be calculated dynamically, and to calculate it you need to pull data from the ERP system, data for all the factors impacting the price. I'll tell you more about that, that's interesting. But as for price calculators, we had to connect in Magento by some observers, write some models, and change the entire pricing mechanism to work as it should work in this project. Another problem, a more tedious problem than the cable calculator and the pricing mechanism, were the B2B elements that had to be introduced in the system. In the cable bank, there are accounts and sub-accounts of customers. If someone has a network of wholesale shops, they can have sub-accounts, they can use merchant limit. It is something that has been added to Magento by us. And the entire workflow of documents related to the merchant's limit, that is submitting an application and then awarding the limit, this had to be added to Magento because that was our biggest headache when starting the project. There was a lot of work to be done. There were no ready-made modules that could have been used, so we've done it from scratch. Those modifications were rather far-fetching. There have been some new functions appearing in the admin panel, and when creating the modifications, we tried to make this platform possible to modify further. If some security patches appear, we didn't want to modify Magento's core. In the first presentation, it was mentioned that Magento is very flexible. I can confirm this because we were able to update it without very serious modifications. We updated the core of the system to the most recent version a couple of times already. Another element that required reconstruction was the purchasing path. In Magento, there's something called one-page checkout, but this didn't work in this project for several reasons. First of all, because in user tests, on the design stage, it turned out that this stage had to have exactly those steps that it has on Cable Bank and bankkabli. So we have rewritten it, replacing the checkout controller with our own controller, and we added some new steps. We've overwritten some blocks in the user interface. One problem is that the steps did not match. Another problem was that we had to add support for the mechanism of selecting the place of delivery together with delivery time. We can agree that this cable can be delivered in a warehouse at a certain hour, and I get an email informing me that it is already available, so it was fully automated. We had to rewrite it. And then the specific features of this of the merchandise required some changes. Because if I add to the basket a certain cable that's on a certain drum, I cannot remove this product. I cannot remove the drum. So there was a lot of things to be done here. Another thing was embedding this in the IT system of the company. This is something that Kathleen has mentioned in the beginning. Even providing the nicest e-commerce site that will not cooperate with the business backend doesn't make sense. The challenge was that Tim has a very well-developed IT backend, the entire infrastructure, all the processes are working very well. We had to modify them somewhere, locating the cable bank system somewhere there. Here you have a diagram of the business system BPML. It is a process for obtaining merchant credit limit. All these processes have been written down and then mapped. System functions were mapped to those processes. What will take place where? And that's for processes. On the right, you can see a diagram with those small computers, a logical model, how the cable bank fits into the rest of the IT structure of TIM. You cannot see the details, but I will tell you more about that in a moment. As for the integration, we had to integrate with several other systems, with an ERP system called MFG Pro, with the document circulation system, and the warehousing system. We have done it using data bus BizTalk. A bit about integration. You have a logical diagram of the cable bank with regard to infrastructure and its components. You have the internet, you have behind the firewall, you have the application service with a database, and then there is an encrypted VPN data exchange channel which connects us with systems on the part of TIM. And the entire synchronization was based on the queuing, the German queuing system, so that if there are any problems, we could repeat the messages so that we do not lose orders somewhere. Information about customers, about pricing. Those prices can change several times a day. About items in stock and so on. It was also difficult to design those protocols of exchange so that they exchange as little information as possible, but as frequently as possible. Because it cannot happen that someone can buy a part of cable that is not there anymore, and that would be possible because we also have offline sales. This entire cable bank has also become an information platform for customers. If someone is buying something offline, theoretically they can also look it up in the cable bank. The system assigns information, associates information using the tax number with the offline system. We use B-stock. Every system is adding information or pulls information from the messages. We used OAges as a form of communication. It is an organization issuing XML formats, a standardization of business formats or business exchange formats. Due to the fact that we forced the use of OAges in TIM's business systems, every other online system that will be implemented there can use this. No additional work is required. And vice versa, if someone wants to use our data from the cable bank, if they can interpret XML messages from OAges, they can easily pull this data. This is what I really liked in that project, and I would like to encourage you to get acquainted with this standard. There are also other standards of data exchange like EDI. It's good to use them with such systems, in case of such systems. And the last thing with implementation, tests. We have carried out a lot of tests with Cable Bank. Functional tests took several weeks. There were several iterations of tests, and functional tests are not everything. So we also carried out integration tests of integration with all other systems. We've done it together with TIM. Security systems, automated systems, automated tests, security tests, and also performance tests. Performance is always the question with Magento. Every customer asks in the beginning whether it's going to perform or not. So in order not to be based just on our assurance, we've carried out some performance tests using various tools such as JMatter. And what else is interesting here? On the right, you can see a test scenario for an example test scenario for all system functions. We've created such scenarios, and they were not aimed at single one-off testing after implementation, but they also used now with every major update, so that the testers can check whether everything is okay with the system. As for quality assurance of the implementation, just a few bits of information. Most of you are developers, so I wouldn't like to bore you here, but several standard things such as separate development environment, testing with SVN, Redline for tickets. This is the basis that we use both with implementation and maintenance of the cable bank. This is the screenshot from Redmine. It's a very nice system. I can recommend you, and that's it. So if someone is interested in this topic, in the enterprise topic, technologies, we are finishing our book, Technologies in E-commerce. We will describe, we'll have very technical description of these topics. This book is being written by people from many companies related to e-commerce. So if you leave me your business contacts after the presentation, I will send you some excerpts from the book before it is launched. I will not send you the entire book, of course, but the most interesting fragments of the book will be sent to you. If you have any questions, I don't know if we have time for them to be asked now. We have 11 minutes left, so you can ask questions now, or we can speak later during the break. If the asker is not using the microphone, we cannot hear the question. As the implementation took 4.5 months. Two and a half developers, 2 working full-time and 1 working part-time. It was based on community. Again, we cannot hear the questions, so we cannot translate them. Sorry. What's the second part of the question? We used Axure, and those models, those templates took us about a month. Yes, it's a secret. We can talk about the requirements. I think this project was very price efficient, very cost efficient. What was the methodology of project management? Was it Scrum? How was it staged in terms of? No, it wasn't Scrum, and it wasn't Agile. It was a typical cascade-based implementation divided into 2 stages. Theoretically, it was possible to launch it in a limited version after the first stage, but we didn't do it. We waited for the second stage to be finished. Andrzej Chowankiewicz, iMerge. I was very intrigued with the topic of the presentation. Speaking of B2B, we are talking about a B2C platform with B2B elements. So apart from merchant credit limits, there was not much B2B there. Because Cable Bank is not a typical B2B platform. It is a B2C platform with B2B elements. That is the purpose of that platform. Out of B2B elements, the hierarchical accounts and sub-accounts and the merchant credit limit and pricing depending on the partnership level. I didn't speak about that, but you're right. This is not a typical B2B system. And also registration of business customers, it was missing there. Here we can only have retail customers, individual customers. No, on registration stage you can register as a company. There is a verification of your business data, but I didn't mention it indeed. So are those business customers, do they have other special pricing policies for them, discount policies? Yes, to a limited extent, but now Tim is working on another strictly B2B system that will contain more of those features. This system was rather aimed about extending the group of customers, and it is the majority of it is targeted at B2C. Okay, thank you. I think that was all. Thank you then.